Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Aligned Identity. Today's guest needs no introduction, but I'm still going to give him one. Today is going to be an episode with Brandon Weston, who is a DevOps engineer, part time Twitch streamer with hundreds of viewers at a time, and also, most importantly, my big brother and best friend. We talk about a ton of topics. We talk about exciting times. He's also quite a comedian, and we have some good laughs. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. And if you do, please like, comment, subscribe. And for Spotify listeners, please tell me what you like about this episode. All right, guys. Thanks so much. And let's get into it. That Patterson Lane house had some absolute characters. Your friends were kind of the life of the party down there, man.
Yeah, I'll always cherish those years living in that place.
Yeah.
It was a wild ride all around. It became like like a safe house, base of operations. Like amongst all my friends, everybody wanted to be there. And like whatever shortcomings our parents had, I will say that they made it a warm, welcoming place. They weren't like, I don't know, they were almost like the cool parents.
Oh, they were the cool
like,
parents.
It's like anything goes, but not too crazy. Like, I don't know. I'd seen worse. I'd seen places where like parents were like drinking with the kids and stuff, and like our parents didn't do anything like that. But it was like they were just so judgment free and accepting of pretty much anyone. So like I could bring home anyone of any like walk of life, any ethnicity, any religious philosophy, and like I mean, there's never any like thing like that going on with our parents. They're very accepting of different walks of life, different people.
That's very true.
And people love to be there. You know, they're very nurturing to my friends, and I think it made it a place, like a safe place for everyone.
Well, I think you do have a good judge of character too. I mean, of course, some of your buddies are fucking wild, but that is what you always got those. But like for the most part, I mean, everyone respected.
Was malicious.
Yes.
They may have been degenerates here and there with their lifestyle
Might
choices.
have been a degenerate.
But it was never anything like malicious towards other people or like hurting other people. So
yeah. Well, that kind of fits in and stuff with like the kind of people our parents are too. I mean, I don't think they're malicious people.
No, absolutely
I think
not.
because of that, I think we have a good sense of who is malicious. You know, like I don't think I've ever had a real friendship with someone, or if I did, like it didn't last very long with someone who was like actually like a toxic person, like only like a leech. You know what I mean? Yeah. Which I guess is a benefit of, having been exposed to good people in your life. I know mom has a mean streak on her, but I've never thought of her as like a malicious person. Maybe she's made some bad decisions under the influence, or
It's not. Yeah, I wouldn't even say she has had some rage moments, but she's just a person.
Don't we all? Don't we all, bro?
She's a person that won't be bullied or pushed around. There's no tolerance for that. I certainly think she instilled that in me. I got some of those characteristics. Most people know me as a mellow, chill person. Like I live and let live for the most part, but there is a switch in my brain that will go off sometimes, and like I have that mom energy at times that she has.
Amen. That primal. All right, it just never leaves. No, I don't necessarily envy that, but that is something that I always thought was a bit intimidating, but also I guess I was a bit envious of that. I just got like the Bob like hot head. Like shitty over nothing. You know what I mean? I've never like thought like, oh, I will fuck you up. Like it's never been to that extent. You know what I mean? Yeah. Meanwhile, mom, sometimes I've felt, and you, like when you stand your ground, it's not like, hey, I'm just shitty. It's I could get physical. Like this is a slight bit of intensity.
I'm never the one that wants to go there. Like
I know it's a push.
I will never introduce that first. It's I can take words all day.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want to me. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I'll say things back to you, but if you cross a certain threshold of space or like touching me or like anything like that, that crosses the line. It's about respect, and it's about, I don't know, the primal nature of what it means to be a primate, a hominid, deep down inside.
Yeah.
I I don't know, the monkey brain triggers. And it's like, it's not like I'm a badass either. I don't have any illusions like, oh, I can beat anybody up.
Right.
It's like I have no fear of defeat is what it really is.
Yeah.
Is like I guess it's like a foolish pride thing in a way, or I don't know what it is. It's
Well, I
like
think
some half pride, some half just like, I don't know, just personal values of like standing up for yourself, not letting people bully you, push you around.
Well, I think that also comes from experience too, because you had told me like you've had some scraps in your day,
Yeah.
and you survived those, and you're like, you know what, like standing my ground or defending myself didn't kill me,
Yeah.
and like you stood for your values, and that reinforces that, right? Stand for your values.
It makes me think of a story. So when I was in middle school, there was this kid named Tom. He was like a friend of mine, but he would every now and then he'd get real physical, like slap me in the back of the head, and he did weird stuff like that. And I used to
Yeah.
let it go for a while. Like
Yeah.
he'd do weird shit like that, like knock your books out of your hands. And I remember one time we were coming up to my locker and he did something like that, and I turned around and I socked him in the face.
Yeah.
Because I was
And
just
he's-
like, I don't know, something happened.
Yeah,
I wasn't
yeah,
in the
yeah.
mood. He like triggered something. I was just
Yeah.
like, I was not ready for. I was not gonna deal with it.
Yeah.
And I turned around and I punched him, and he just looked at me like real startled, like he'd never seen me do that before. I'd never done it, and that dude never did it again. And so,
Fucking teacher.
and so like it just kind of like reinforced the idea. I was like, wow, I stood up for myself. I drew a line. I
Yeah.
set a barrier for a person. And a weird, I don't know. I guess I could have done it better. It was very reflexive. It was very primal. It wasn't like thought out. It was just like I was in
Instinct.
I was in a weird mood.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really have control over it. I was really young too. So like, but yeah, no, it was like one of those moments that kind of like reinforced the idea that yeah, sometimes if you stand up for yourself, people will stop fucking with you.
Yeah.
And then like, I don't know, there's been a few instances similar to that where I just like, I don't know, it's like that's where that became a personal value of mine.
Yeah.
It's like not to let somebody push me around. And like, because when I was younger, I think I did let that happen to me. When I was in elementary school, I remember getting bullied and stuff,
told
and
me
I
about
never
that.
did anything about it.
Yeah. Bob recounts a story that you beat up a bully and then he took you to ice cream.
Yeah.
Can you
That
can you
was-
confirm or deny?
That's weird. So this kid's name was Carlos. God, I hope I'm not like doxing anyone. That's his only
He-
first name.
How
This
the fuck is
forever
it? Yeah,
ago,
that's it. Yeah.
No, he was like, actually, it was weird because I had a history from him from elementary school. I got picked on something about my hair. They were like calling me Puff Daddy. I had this real like frizzy,
Yeah.
wiry hair as a kid, and I used to like, I don't know,
Bowl-
not have it cut very well.
Bowl cut, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, he was part of a group of kids that would mess with me back then.
Was he
So,
popular?
yeah, amongst that group, like,
Okay.
yeah. And I never felt like I was very high on the totem pole in school. I was like, I don't know, I was kind of a chameleon. Later in life, I'd like kind of branch in a lot of different groups. But
Yeah.
in elementary school, I don't know. I was pretty low on the totem pole. But anyways, I would leave that school and I'd meet totally different people. And I wouldn't meet Carlos until like 3 or 4 years later.
Yeah.
Maybe it was only a couple years. But then we'd end up in
Middle
it
school?
was like 8th grade together. And he tried to bully me after it was weird. I was like, after lunch, we used to sit in the bleachers and you'd go play basketball. And I remember this kid, I didn't even know him very well. He was like antagonizing me all for the whole session that we were sitting there. It was so weird. He was calling me Jill. It was some weird little kid shit. He's like, oh, this is Jill. And like the kids next to him were laughing and I was just sitting by myself and he was behind me and I was getting so mad. Like I was like
Why?
I was ready about to blow up. And this kid had been messing with me. And the funny thing is like Carlos didn't even have this coming, but like I was walking to class after all this happened and Carlos came up to me and he said something like, you know what, Brandon, we're gonna mess with you or something in class. Like he was like, he antagonized me and like threatened to do something. And I just switch flipped everything. I remember visually everything turned red and I turned around and I punched him. I pushed him into the lockers and I started hammer fisting the top of his head. And he was so surprised. All he did is just kind of buckle up. And this kid was bigger than me too. And I don't know what it was. Like it just, all the rage. I was so mad. Like I was steaming walking and he just said it. And it was like, I couldn't control it.
Yeah.
I completed insanity in court. Like I had no control of my body, and it was like not even controlled fighting. Like I'd get my ass beat. Like I was just hammer fisting his head and just couldn't stop.
Yeah.
And then like the teachers come, they grabbed us, they broke it up. We both got suspended. And back then, like it wasn't that big of a deal. Like you go home for 3 days, like and
walk
you
it
get
off.
over it.
Yeah.
And like I remember my friend Jonathan at the time. He called me. He'd heard about it. He was like hyping me up because he didn't like him either. Because we both dealt with
Sounds
him
like a shitty
back
kid,
in
honestly.
elementary school.
Yeah.
Later me and him reconciled for the
That's
record.
cool.
later down the line, you know, I remember seeing him in high school, and like this is a recurring theme in these types of conflicts between boys, young boys and men.
Yeah.
Is like sometimes when you do that, you can actually walk away with more respect for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, a lot of the guys that I got into scuffles with, we actually were like okay afterwards.
Yeah.
And like I wouldn't even say I beat him up. It was just like me hammer fisting his head and then
Taking out all that
But yeah,
anger.
our grandma always had this philosophy, and I think that's part of what got instilled in me. She was like, she didn't even care. She's like, well, grandson, she's like, did you win? And I was like, I think so. And she's like, good. And that, I mean, if you talk to mom, she'll tell you stories like that.
The podcast, she brought that up, and she
Yeah.
talked about that. Like, Carolyn got her ass beat, and she was more mad that she got her ass beat than anything. It wasn't
Yeah.
even the fight or anything.
I don't
it
even
was
think
just
it was
like,
that
don't
Carolyn
lose.
got beat up. I think it was that she cried and allowed and didn't even fight back or something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. My apologies.
But that might have been part of it too. But yeah, I don't know. She was just like that was one of her personal core values. And Ruth was not a woman. She certainly saw violence as a solution to some problems.
Fair enough, man.
That's just how she was.
Yeah.
I mean, there's stories of her like hitting grown men.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. She's a wild one.
Yeah. Well,
So yeah, I didn't get in any trouble for that. Hell, they remember that kid from when I was in elementary school. So
Yeah.
to them, it was kind of like cosmic justice. They always were like, you know, you defended yourself and you stuck up for yourself, and that was an important thing that was like to be applauded.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I don't know. That's not like how people are raised anymore. That's not how society conducts itself.
Yeah. But I think that could be an issue, personally. Like,
Yeah.
if kids picking on other, I mean, bullying is so rampant, but it's like if actually people stood up for themselves. And for instance, like, not that Carlos was ready to fight or anything, but like when you actually fucking bring it to someone, they're not ready. You know, they've just been talking shit for 8 years. You know what I mean?
No,
like they weren't fucking ready for those hands, you know?
Well, that's
like
one thing you learn over time is usually the loudest people are the least like threatening in actual physical combat. Like it's usually just a bunch of blah blah blah, a bunch of yip yap. I mean, I think that the most, and this isn't like a universal truth, but the people that are truly dangerous and have a capacity for violence don't usually have to talk about it.
Yeah.
They don't usually have to assert themselves like with stupid words or like trying to instigate a fight for no reason. Like, because they know what could happen. You know that it's a risk to me and you. If we fight each other, either one of us could get hurt. Because like I might lose, but I'm gonna fuck you up the best I can.
I'm gonna do it.
Sorry, I don't know. I don't mean to be violent, but it's like I'm gonna do whatever I can.
Yeah. No, I get that.
And like, I don't know, violence, I certainly do think it is a solution to some problems myself. You know, they say it's never the answer. That's not entirely true.
Well, at some point you got to stand up for yourself. And if your words only go so far, unfortunately. I mean, look, we have world wars. You know what I mean? Like, violence is just unfortunately part of human nature, but also it's like not necessarily a sign of dominance, but it's also a sign of like defense. Yeah. And I think if you can use it defensively, I think it can be important in a society. And almost to the point, like, that's something we are missing nowadays. You know, you can't always beat your bullies with words. And then you tell a teacher, sometimes the hazing gets even worse. Yeah. And, it just trickles down to the point that, like, you can't even show your face. And then, like, if your parents are just telling you, no, like, you know, kill him with kindness, which I think is a good way to maybe start and maybe eventually something, you know, that could fix it. Yeah. But more than likely, it's going to take a little more either help from adults, a bigger conversation with the kid, with adults, or those fucking hands, you know?
And I think you should always use your words first. And there's other ways to assert yourself. You know, as I got older, I started to learn that sometimes I didn't even have to lift a finger. Sometimes all it takes is a certain level of, like, confidence in your voice, or you've gone through these experiences when you're younger, and I think some people can see it in you. Mm-hmm. Like, they can sense that you're not playing games with them. Yeah. Because you're not the one that initiated it, but you don't bow down. You look them in the eye, and sometimes people will be like, okay, yeah, it's not worth it. And it usually isn't. I mean, there's legal troubles. You could hurt yourselves. You could accidentally kill somebody. It's usually it's not the wisest course of action, but I certainly think, and I don't know, this might be a controversial opinion, but especially for young men and boys, I think it's an important part of who we are as people. It has throughout human history. You observe it in the wild, but no, we are a more elevated species. Use your words.
Yeah.
You know?
At least to start, I completely agree. And one thing that I struggled with, and I told you I finally found like some
form of confidence. I've never actually fought anyone. Like I've wrestled with like Nick and like stuff like even you. Like like I've had
playing around.
Yeah, and that's really good for male bonding. Like especially like when you're young, it's fundamental. Yeah. I can't wait to like if I have a son, I can't wait to like wrestle with them and play with them because that's just part of an upbringing. Mm-hmm. But I never had like a physical interaction. I never got to live through a fight. There's been times where I've been pushed to the point. There was one time in like elementary school, I was finally tired of one of my friends just constantly being an asshole. And I think it was like 5th or 6th grade. And like we're playing basketball and it's just like it bubbles up, right? It boils up. Like you were saying, like just for some reason we were playing basketball and like we're in 5th and 6th grade, and I like took a shot, and like he elbowed me in my stomach, and I'm like, I probably didn't say anything. I was probably just like, hey, or something like that. I forget it's 5th or 6th grade, but then I like get the ball back. We another round's going, and like I go up for a layup, and he slaps the hell out of my hand, and I'm like, really, dude? Like is
purpose?
This? Yes.
Like was it just a bad block?
Oh, dude, no. It was like I got past him, and then he just freaking like smacks, right? And I'm like, really, dude? Like, is this happening? Like, why are you being a dick? And obviously, I didn't say a dick because I'm in 5th and 6th grade. I was probably like, why are you being a
jerk face?
Yeah, right. And then the like very next play, I get the ball, I shoot. And he shoves me. And what was weird about our playground, like our basketball court, was that it was elevated. So he shoves me, and like I can't catch my feet. I can't do anything. I like land on my back. And I got up and I immediately charged him. And I wouldn't say I saw red, but I fucking saw him. Yeah. And I was like, all right, motherfucker. And he started running. And like he trips, and like I get on top of him, and I just like grab his like fucking like like his pretty much. I just grabbed his fucking collar, and it was perfect timing because the like the what is it called? Not the color guard, the like teacher outside watching recess. She was just happened to be running around the track, and she like I see her like running over and something like that, and other kids are like trying to get me off of them from the basketball court, and I never threw a punch. But I like when I grabbed his fucking neck, I just wanted to kill him. But it was like that almost
like
to it.
Shaking,
it was
why
almost
you do this?
yeah. It was just like that same energy. It's like I was never taught to hurt people, and I always have wanted to be nice to people. That's always been my very first intention. I've never been one to like instigate shit with people, and it's almost so weird to me because I don't understand how kids get those developments to be like, yeah, that's my target today. And I think it probably stems from a poor living environment.
They're modeling behavior they've seen probably.
But even like when we had it bad, it's not like I resulted to being a shitty person. Yeah. And it just really, and again, like you said, it's probably just modeling from the adults. But
yeah, I feel lucky because like I don't know, I saw some, I guess, violent, malicious type behavior, a lot of anger, and like.
Are you saying when you were younger?
But like it never made me want to do that to anyone else. It never made me like feel like I need to go to school and like go slap a kid around or do anything like that. That was never me. Never felt that. I was always like, I don't know, if anything, I'd defend somebody or like check a bully because it was just never who I was. Like,
yeah. Well, I hate to bring it up, but like in Mom's podcast, we kind of talked about it. When you were younger and stuff, do you remember? Like the kind of fights that they would have and shit like that.
It was only like very lightly physical, if any, but mostly just like a lot of yelling, a lot of screeching, like high volume. It's very. I mean, I do a lot of self-reflection and like psychoanalysis. I don't know what that did to me. I know it did something. It definitely molded who I was as a kid. But like it's very violent, like language, just screaming, yelling, like the most like heinous shit. And I can't even think of the words. I just remember the energy. It was just like a toxic energy. Yeah. It was a very hostile environment for a young kid to be in, to always feel like, and I feel like that probably transferred through a lot of aspects of my life somehow, that PTSD. Yeah. Just like that tumultuous environment of like two people that birthed you, but they hate each other.
Yeah.
It was mostly one-sided, but yeah.
And you couldn't move. You know, it's not like you
No.
can have any autonomy at that age. You know, like you're still relying on both of these people who hate each other.
It made me miserable. It was really painful. I mean, you hate to see because, like, you know, I wasn't as close to my dad as my mom, and my dad was so vindictive and so bitter at my mom. So it was like, but this is the person that takes care of me, and you're in the military, and you're barely ever around. And so, like, why are you talking shit? Dude,
Why are you talking shit?
I can't remember the last time you made me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with, like, carrot sticks, dick.
Right.
Like, why are you talking shit about this person that, like, nurtures and cares for me? Like, fuck you. So it was, like, so annoying, but because he would drag me into it, too. He would just, like, trash her. Even after the divorce, when they finally split up, like,
You told me about that.
That's just how he was. Like, and, like, I forgive him for that. Like, he's got his own problems. I'm sure his parents were worse, and that's just, like, shit rolls downhill.
Yeah.
But yeah, it made it really hostile environment for when I was young.
Yeah. When did you you lived with him for a time, right? So like when sorry man.
No, you're
but
good.
I
No,
actually
fine.
don't know this fucking timeline. So like
you were very young.
when you were so like 0 to like what until they divorced?
Shit. So, like, I don't know. My earliest childhood memories are like 4 or 5 years old. We lived in Virginia, I believe, back then.
Oh, where Brittany was born.
Yeah.
Holy fuck. Okay.
Like, at 4 years old, I was in Virginia. So, I vaguely remember preschool. I think things weren't as bad back then for them.
Okay.
That was, like, their initial, like, I don't know. They got married when they're in the military. But then, so, and we also lived with my grandma, you know, and grandpa.
In Virginia?
Not in Virginia, but when I got to be about 5, 6, I remember living at the old house.
So when like Brittany was born, you moved back to Anderson kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was like 5, and I guess that's when she was born. So yeah, that was when I started elementary school and went to Valley Grove over there.
Nice.
So
Valley Grove alum? No.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. And then so like when I was in 2nd grade, we lived in Indianapolis for a while, and by then they were split up. I don't know. My dad was always gone. In the military, they force you to live places. I remember going a couple weekends to visit him. We lived in an apartment in Indianapolis, and Brittany was like super young. I was like 7 years old, and I remember going to see him on the barracks. And back then, I guess they weren't living together then, so it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
And then they got back together when I was like, I don't know, my grandfather died back then. That was like 93.
Yeah.
And then we came back to be with, our grandma.
Yep.
And because she was like, struggling, and we were back at that house again. And then they got a house out there in Anderson and in the countryside. And that's when our mom and my dad, they moved back in together. And that was when it was like really bad. Yeah. By then I was like 7, 8 years old, and that was when like,
you were conscious.
Yeah, he would come in and I remember my dad being locked out of the house, and he was like screaming at our mom, like yelling shit at her, like open the door. And then like I walk by and he's like, hey Brandon, he's like, let me in, come on, unlock the door. And I'm like in this awkward position. I let him
because mom and dad.
Yeah, and so I let him in the house, and then like he comes storming in, and then they just start like going at it again, screaming, yelling at each other over God knows what. I don't know. And I just go to my room, and honestly, so I don't know. I don't want to get dark. I just remember that was the first time I ever had like suicidal thoughts. Is when I was about that age, 7, 8 years old. I just remember I just didn't want to be there. I was so sick of living around that shit. It was like nonstop. They're just fighting every night, just like just nasty at each other. And so that was the first time I remember feeling like that. But like slowly that faded. Finally they split up, and like I ended up back with them. How old was I? When Mom got with your dad, with Bob.
You were 12.
I was in 5th grade when we moved into Teresa's house. And so that was when they finally got apart. And I think, they stayed apart. That was it. It was over. Yeah. He was still a dickhead. Whenever I'd be there, he'd shit talk her all the time. Sure. But like they were not in the same space. So I didn't have to deal with that like war of words every day. Yeah. So that's when things mellowed out. Honestly, things started to look up for me. I was like, we lived with her, and then she got with Bob, and Bob was like the father I never had. Like, I always told you this. Your dad, I always hold him in a special place in my heart. He took me in as his own. He always loved and cared for me in a way that my dad never did. My dad was always a very troubled person. I don't want to like shit on him, man. He's like
He has his own demons.
Like,
I get it.
As I got older, I just like nothing but forgiveness. Like he is who he is. We're all like molded from different shit in life.
Yeah.
I don't know what pain he dealt with as a kid. Hell, it could have been worse than me. But anyways, your dad, yeah. So they get together, and then we moved to the Madison Garden Apartments when I was like in 6th grade, and that's when the whole middle school, we went from there to like Patterson Lane, and that was when a whole different chapter of life opened up.
Yeah.
But so when Mom got in trouble, that's when I had to live with him. So I lived with him and his new wife. Things were fine. Like he would still, he's still bitter about, he'd bitch about child support or whatever. But like the war was mostly over.
Yeah.
And like I didn't have to deal with that.
He was remarried.
I lived with him, but it was always a very like superficial relationship I had with him. Like I lived with him, but it was like I don't know. I never really did shit with my dad. Like I never went out and like I played ball with Bob all the time. Like I play basketball, wrestle around. I never did shit like that with my dad.
Yeah.
So it was like I would just live there. I was just like a resident of the house, and like I remember going with them to church and shit. But yeah, I lived there for like a year. But as soon as Mom got out, I was like. Oh, actually, I did stay there for a while. They were going to move to, like, this other city far across the state. Like, it was going to transplant me away from my friends. And so I was like, I took that as my opportunity to go live with Mom.
Yeah,
like that's when I ended up back at the house. And that's that whole era that you remember thereafter.
Yeah. The glory days.
Yeah.
Dude, that's fucking brutal, man. That made me teary-eyed.
No, dude.
Because, like, in that situation, dude, I mean, I've had obviously moments that were like, it sucks being a kid and feeling defenseless and like not being able to make your parents happy and like not have control of the situation, and it's very toxic. And that's in similar moments, like that's been my hardest times was when I was a kid and like having Bob, who, I mean, a great guy, but like his tantrums were fucking immense.
Yeah.
But
and him and Mom used to fight too. But
I remember that, and I remember crying every single damn time.
Yeah,
like
me too.
I hated it. But
it was a different fight.
I was never chose to pick a side, and like for instance, like that example you just gave me, like that gives me chills because like Brandon just opened the door, but then you have Mom who locked the door for a reason, and it's like. If I don't do it, then maybe my dad is mad at me.
Yeah.
And then if I do it, I know I let my mom down. And like, just, I could only imagine being a fucking young child,
memorable
man.
Moments I have of that, and it was just like it sticks out because it was so awkward. Because I don't know, I didn't know what to do.
Yeah,
like
you were literally getting pulled.
Yeah.
At fucking 7
honestly,
years old.
In hindsight, I wish I didn't open it because all it did is open up the door to more just yada yada blah blah blah.
Fuck, man. That's wild. But I guess you get through it. And then we had the glory years. The Xbox.
Xbox Live.
Yeah. Yo, System Link in the house.
Yeah.
Oh, those were silly days, dude. Those were so silly days. It was so much fun. Love being called a screen peeker. I definitely was a screen peeker. I think we all were, but I think the older people just didn't know how to do it. The poor Bob and Jay getting fucking torched by a 6-year-old, man.
Yeah, not everyone was as obvious about it as you.
Yeah,
I was
dude.
To just like glance with the corner of my eye.
Nah, dude, that was the important part. Finding where everyone was. If you knew where the map, you knew where everyone was, and you just had to torch them. And to be fair,
split screen worked.
I with split screen, I translated pretty well too. I wasn't just shit, But screen peeking 1v1, you got torched. I mean, you could beat me, but I don't know how you felt about beating a 6-year-old, You were the only one who I think could really torch me in those days. But
that was my peak.
That was my peak.
I don't think I've torched you in the last 10 years.
Hey, man. These fans finally came in.
The very competitive games like that just absorbed me.
Yeah.
I felt like I missed the heyday because back then, MLG started when we were living.
Oh,
in
it
that
wasn't
house
real
I was
though.
In high school.
Yeah.
That was like the very beginning of esports. I mean, I guess Korea had already been doing their thing with Brood War or whatever, but like locally, the first time I'd heard about it, MLG, they were starting to do like Halo 2 and other games.
Yeah.
kind of missed the boat. I don't know if I would have been good enough. I felt back then, like when I think in hindsight, I felt like I was good enough back
like
then, but maybe not.
17,
I
18.
think I was just like a big dog, or like, you know, a big fish in a small pond of our hometown. Because I was like known throughout all the groups around school. Like I used to slay
You could torch
kids.
motherfuckers, I know.
Every land we went to, I was the guy, like number one, like
Built
pick.
fucking different. Number one pick.
But that's a different pool. I don't know if I could have
Yeah.
competed. You know, I feel like back then, just because I was dominating that scene,
Anderson.
can make me feel like maybe I could have. You know, I don't know. I don't know if I could have made it in the bigger scene. But
Yeah.
back then, that was like my peak performance is like video games. You know, I try to do it in StarCraft.
Yeah.
Like StarCraft, I was like religiously studying that game and like strategies and getting better, and I peaked at Diamond. And then League of Legends was like a more chill version of that, but not exactly. There's different trappings because you're like on a team, you got to rely on other people.
Yeah.
You still have to have like a game sense of
less
seeing what's going on.
APMs, but
yeah, it's still very like tactical game
Yeah.
and like decision making.
Yeah.
And then like these days, I don't know. I'm becoming a worse and worse competitive gamer because I kind of turn my brain off now.
yeah.
And I don't really play as competitive. Like I still love the competition, but it's like I don't play to win anymore. I just play to have like a fun experience, and like I don't care enough about victory, I think.
Yeah.
And it even translates to the game that I play now. Is like same thing. Sometimes I just YOLO it in, and like I don't care. Just I want to have fun. I want to like get the dopamine, and then I don't care about like the outcome.
Well, one nice thing about your game is you've been streaming, dude, and you've been fucking killing it in my eyes. Yeah, I'm a modest like 100 viewer streamer, you know, like I'm.
Fuck, on a good day.
Nah, dude, you cook. What do you mean?
Yeah, those.
How much of Jeff Bezos' dollars have you gotten?
You know, actually, a few hundred.
Hey, shit, that's what I'm talking about.
No, it's cool. No, I mean it's neat. Like I've actually got a couple payouts from Twitch.
That is awesome, dude.
It's never gonna like sustain a living, but I mean unless I can't say never, but like currently there's no way I could like possibly justify a living. But it does like open up the possibility. Like it does like it shows that that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Like it's given me
it's like
the
an
notion
inkling
that it could be done.
Yeah.
I just feel like I may have waited too long. I don't know if like it's the best use of my time now at my age and like where I'm at in life.
Yeah.
I feel like if I would have poured into it back when I first started streaming, like I think it was like 10 years ago.
Back in Bochinki.
Yeah. Like even before that, it was EVE Online, but then then PUBG. If I would have kept that going, maybe.
The stream has really grown, and like I think one thing that you do is consistency. Like, you know, anyone who's listened to this podcast would know that I care a lot about consistency. But like, I think what's the term or what's the phrase that I want to reference? It's like consistency doesn't guarantee you success, but without consistency, you can't have success.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. And I think it shows. Like, if you just streamed one random night, like, you wouldn't have the consistent people. But, like, every time you stream, you have people you have activity. Yeah. And I think that for a small streamer is fucking incredible. You do have a community. And I think that's really cool. I think it's really, like, I don't know, I'm sure it feels really good to kind of have that. Like, for other people who would like be pursuing a streaming career.
Yeah.
Some people don't even have that. Like, I know you were telling me about a friend that you have who had like really cool, like he had went full blown, but like he would be striving to get to where you are, and you did it so naturally and so subtly.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. Like, I don't know. I do think that but I think it's a combination of things. Like, I'm in a niche genre. I do think that I've gotten good as a speaker over time, especially in this stage of my life. I'm a lot better at speaking, more confident in speaking, and I go on my tangents, and I think it's entertaining. And if I have people watching, I will talk, and I'll entertain all ideas. I'll talk about anything. I'll talk about the game, and if we branch off into weird social topics, I'll do that to the best of my ability without violating TOS,
which can be tough. Which can be tough.
Very difficult in these days.
You choose your words very properly. Like, you have your regular sentence, and then you like have a moment you're like.
And the funny thing about this game is it reaches my demographic of kids that grew up in the 90s in the most heinous time of like online toxicity and gamer words and all that stuff. Some of these people in this game are toxic and that, right? Some of them, they're like so edgy. They're like I don't even think they believe what they say, but they just want to elicit the response. They want to say the bad thing they're not supposed to say. It's this weird psychological thing.
Yeah.
And for me, and in my professional life, I try to stay the far away as I can from that stuff because, you know, it can reach out and touch you these days. Even being affiliated with it,
right?
Somebody takes the wrong sound clip, or if you say something crazy, like take that clip and take it out of context.
Yeah.
Like you could have just been referencing or talking about a thing. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I totally get that, and it is funny. Internet like community, you have edgelords. I mean, it's just a terminology.
Actually,
incels,
not
like
just my generation. So it's like I got the '90s kids that play this game. There's like a big demographic of them that play this game in particular. I don't know what it is.
Who grew up saying
the Zoomers are starting to be like that too. I know some of your friends.
Dude,
man,
oh my gosh, you beat me to it.
There's a small band of those kids that do the same thing. Like they just want to say the bad word they're not supposed to say.
It's actually.
And I don't even think they mean it.
Well, that's the problem. Is like No, it's not the problem necessarily that they don't mean it, but it's like, why would you say that? I just don't know how that comes into your vernacular. Yeah. And like, I know it's edgy, but that doesn't make it like cool.
I kind of get it in some rights. It's like a rebellion against like the police state of words and thoughts and ideas that we're in right now. So in some ways, they're like the freedom fighters or something.
But I'm
trying to give them a noble lean.
Yeah,
they're freedom psychology,
and they're all from a small town. These guys, and I think that's part of it too. Is like culturally, it's like, well, I know all of them are not bad people, and I know all of them don't mean it because I've had instances with all of them, and a lot of them, and you know the word that I'm like thinking of. So I'm not trying to like allude to what it is or anything, but I understand that they're not that bad. But it just is weird to me. My buddy Jake was in a call with me one time and we were like playing games, and then one of those guys joined and he just starts ripping the word, and Jake's like, "Oh." Like, and then when he left, my buddy Jake was like, "That guy's edgy." I was like, "Yeah, he is," you know, like, but he's not that bad. He's not that bad, I promise.
I don't know. It's kind of like, I guess, the pendulum of extremities.
Yeah.
It's like you got people like that, but then you have the people over here that, like, you say, like, anything, they take offense to almost anything or find any reason to be like, "Oh my God, you said the thing."
Well, it's almost like
It's like there's other people, like, they want to say the word to like make those people mad or something.
It's like counterculture, right?
And then there's people in the middle who are just like, "You're too fucking sensitive and you're a weirdo."
Yeah, right.
Just be normal people.
Right, yeah.
But
oh shit, man.
That's just, I guess, how sometimes it shakes out.
Yeah, but when it comes to like your stuff too, I mean, even your fights and things like that are very hilarious. How you yell 1v3 and you're so yes when you that's what's funny is like you're entertaining in that way. It's like, "What's up, bitches?" Like it might be a 1v3, but you know, I heard your mama's fat or something, you know, just like you antagonize a little bit.
That's
like,
one of the things I love about that game is the VoIP system. So you can interact with anyone. It's like anybody from all over the world plays it, and so I think I have a reputation in that game. Actually, I've charmed most people. Over time, I wear them down. I just like the silver tongue. I just keep on talking to them, and eventually, even the people that used to just kick my ass and live next door to me, they're like, "All right, you're cool, man."
Yeah.
And then, like, I'll get them when they're by themselves. You know, they'll be like, "Dude, you got to get out of here. Our guild's coming. They're just gonna kill everything."
Yeah, right.
I'm like, "All right, appreciate you, dude."
Good one, dog.
But yeah, that niche environment, being decent at speaking, you know, in some of those niche games, they don't have as much competition. Like if I stream StarCraft and I play at a reasonably competitive level, but not high enough to stream the game, like if I was a grandmaster, even then I'd maybe get like a few hundred viewers.
Yeah.
Not much.
And that would have to take consistency too. Yeah. Because there's like players in Challenger of League of Legends who maybe get 10 like viewers, you know, like it takes surprising. A lot.
That's surprising to me.
I know. Well, you can go down at the bottom of the list. Like a lot of the times they're like one tricks and stuff like that. But,
because it seems to be for streaming, it's like you either have a high level of skill or you're just charming, a good speaker, or whatever it is that brings the people in.
But what's unique about streaming is, or not unique, but one of the critiques right now is like it's so saturated. And so like it's very hard to stand out. And one benefit of your game is like it is like there could only be 3 people streaming the entire time. But if you're the most recognizable one, like for instance, like if there's 3 streamers there, 2 names that you don't recognize, but you see Zavi.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I see him streaming more often, and he has higher viewers most of the time. We're switching to him, you know? And that's something that I can see consistently happening, because I would do that in League. If there was like watching some low streamer or whatever, and then Tyler 1 pops on, it's like, oh, T1.
That's actually the type of things I deal with, because there are more popular streamers in that game, in that genre. Like, and when those guys take a hiatus, that's when I feel like it's my time to shine. Like, I actually could start eating up this market share, like get a foothold, and it gives me more recognition. More people see my stream and would jump in and see what's up. So, and those guys are getting bored with the game, and so it also drives. It's like it reinforces my drive to do it.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes when I see that it's empty, and like I see some other streamers where, like, I guess based on my level or hierarchy of like what's gonna get more viewership or the renown that you have.
Yeah.
So like I was like, oh, I should hit the start button because I could reap today.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Weird. It's calculated. I think
and
it's
far
smart.
as like Twitch stats go, I do pretty well because most people barely get any views. So
I bet.
like statistically, I'm like probably in a higher percent, maybe even above average. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because if you amass like the amount of people doing it, which is immense, there's a lot.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much to go to the upper echelons.
Right.
But still, you got it's like the real life. There's like the 1% that's taking the majority. I mean, the people that get like 8,000 views or whatever.
Right.
And to make it in that industry, I feel like I'll say there's one guy that streams my game that I think might actually make a living.
Okay.
I think he's got a few thousand subs. I mean,
that's
if we do the
pretty
basic
good.
math, dude.
It's like $5,000.
$5 a sub. So
then you get half of that, right?
And you only get half of it.
So $2,500 a month. I mean, you could hypothetically. I've lived on worse.
Yeah,
you know, like.
And then if you got people doing like I don't know how the bits, you know, Twitch gets a cut of those. It used to be like there was like a donation button, and that was like directly tied to your PayPal. I think you get like all of it.
You can still donate, right?
Yeah, you can do it, but Twitch was smart in setting up the bit system.
Yeah,
because it's more like fanfare. It's more like plugged into the platform, and like it just there's a vibe to it. So, like,
but they get a touch of it.
Yeah, they get. I think that's more of like a 70-30 split on those.
Okay. So bits are a little more like very supportive.
Yeah, they are more lucrative in that sense, I think.
Okay, fair enough. No, I did not know that. I thought subs were cool because like you build a community.
Yeah.
Like that's why like when I saw people like ever comment, like anyone listening who watches your stream, they just gotta, if I'm in it and I see you comment in the thing and you don't have a sub, we have fucking problems because you're getting gifted a sub because it just helps build a community. Like,
no, I appreciate the support, man.
Well, of course, it's not about that. I'm just saying, like, I think that's what's so cool is, I know you're very modest with it and stuff, and I know, like, as me and Tony are like, dude, but maybe one day, you know. I just think it's cool to see you have that outlet. I love seeing you like light up. I love seeing that banter. You've always been such an intelligent thinker and like creative speaker, and I fucking love seeing it.
Thanks,
I
dude.
love seeing it, man.
I still have imposter syndrome is what it is. Like I've been doing it and like I am getting some traction, but I guess there's still that lack of confidence, or like, you know, I haven't made it, like don't feel like I've made it, but it's like, oh, you're starting to get a foothold in this thing. But yeah, it's just a little bit of imposter syndrome.
Well, did you ever establish goals with it?
Not exactly.
Or is it just kind of come about naturally?
I just do like the goals of like, I don't know, like right now my goal is 500 followers, and like I slapped up a goal of like 50 subs, and those are visible to people that can see it.
Yeah.
I mean, if I wanted to take it more seriously, I'd be more serious about video clips and setting up the YouTube channel, because those two, it's an ecosystem and they feed into each other.
Yeah.
So if you're, you know, I think anyone trying to be a streamer on Twitch, you should have a YouTube.
Yeah.
And I've been a lazy bum. I've been wanting to do it for like a year. I still haven't done it.
Well, I mean, I can vouch for that. I don't love video editing for anyone listening. I like to have the video aspect. That's why I cared about this setup and stuff. But
which is an awesome setup.
Thanks, man.
It's I like this. I mean, it reminds me. I try to take a shot at this, and my setup was embarrassing. It still is. Like, I don't know. Like, I got that echo and the lighting and this backdrop is pretty sweet.
Well, I told you, like, that picture. It just,
oh, yeah.
I was like, that's a picture Brandon would have in his
I love this
podcast
picture.
studio. I was like, yeah, that's totally him. But no, it is difficult because I mean, if you've listened to the podcast, I've literally complained to myself that I need to make clips and I need to be making more of an effort to like post on social media. I haven't even told my like, I have like, obviously on Facebook, like I have hundreds of friends.
Yeah.
On Instagram, I have like hundreds of followers, and I have not like actually announced to other people that I've had it. And in a way, like for instance, even you, right? Like you haven't posted on Facebook like, hey, I'm a Twitch streamer, and like it's almost, I don't feel like embarrassed, but I also feel like I want to grow my own thing and like do it naturally. But I know if I post online, which I'm just gonna have to do after this podcast, I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna post it and like a social announcement because I've been putting it off because I know it would boost my numbers and maybe help me get supported by more people that I love and stuff. But who knows if they share it to a friend, and then that expands to another thing, and even having more recognition or more likes in a YouTube video. Like likes on YouTube videos are huge.
Yeah.
And even commenting is huge.
It feeds into the algorithm.
Even if you just type W in a comment, like it just absolutely helps. Mom's podcast, one of her friends went on there and commented 7 times. Love her. Love her. She's, the best. But Mom's YouTube video almost has like 80 views compared to like the next one, which may only have like 20.
Yeah.
And it's very clear in the analytics that gets more recommended than anything else because it has the most interaction.
Yeah.
And so I think I've been putting that social one off because maybe fear of judgment from my peers and things like that.
I mean, when I did that thing last year, I didn't tell a soul at work because I thought I wanted to talk about controversial topics of our time. And so, especially working in like a corporate space where everything's very like safe and like they police the language and like all the new ideas and like, this thing's very bad and toxic. And I don't know, what the state of affairs in today. So like, I feel like I'm putting myself at great risk, sadly, in America, to exercise my freedom of speech and discuss like these complicated issues. I just don't want any blowback. Like if I say something and like someone doesn't agree with it and then they blast it on work or say, he posted this thing and I take issue with this, and then it becomes an HR matter. Like I'm really worried about stuff like that because I want to talk about complicated issues. So I didn't want to like put it too far out there. The other thing is like I want natural growth. I don't know that it's going to make a huge difference in your small circle. I mean, it's every little bit helps, but I feel like the consistency is what, like you said earlier, matters.
Yeah.
I think that's where the success lies.
I agree.
Doing it consistently over a long enough period of time, you might get that little clip that just takes off, and that's some of the viral nature of things. And I think as long as you stay true to like your vision and you don't try too hard to like, game the system, and you do something that means something to you and you believe in it. And I think if you do it long enough and you just keep getting better at editing the cuts, get better as a speaker, I think that success will naturally come. Yeah. And you've been consistent. I think it's great.
Well, I will never forget I think it was Chris Williamson or whatever. It was after 20 episodes, you were within kind of what you were alluding to. After 20 episodes of a podcast, you were within the 1% of podcasts.
See, that's wild.
That's crazy, man.
Our mutual friend Matt, and he was on this podcast. I loved his content. I love him as a speaker. Honestly,
he was funny.
I almost want to do it with him. I was like, are you looking for another bald dude to take that second slot? Like, I'll talk crazy politics / social issues with you. Fuck. And I lean a little bit different than him. Like I don't know, but I think me and him are very similar. I think we're mostly very moderate, leaning in like one or two directions. I don't know, but both very rational.
He's left. He's not liberal.
Exactly. Yeah.
I messed up in that terminology.
But I think me and him are very analytical in our approach to things. But I think that we might disagree. But I think that we could, we could talk about it and have discourse in a like meaningful, polite, like engaging way. But anyways, like his production value was really good.
it inspired this. It
Yeah.
inspired this. We talk about that in the podcast.
He inspired me. I was the reason I did it too. I was like,
Yeah.
man, I was like, they're killing it. And I didn't go, I think you guys both did way more than me. I was like, I guess my emphasis is going to be on, I guess my persona as a character and the content and like what I'm saying. So that's my core principle. I think that's where the value is. However, I mean, certainly this helps. Like, I think to make it more aesthetically pleasing, it makes it more palatable. I mean, your audio, like when I listen to some of my shit, I'm like, God, that audio, like the echo, my ceilings are so tall.
Yeah.
I even tried, like, even for my stream and stuff, like I got the things on
The
the walls.
pads.
It's not helping much. I think maybe I need a better mic like this.
Yeah.
But like, this is great. I wish, but like my focus wasn't on that. I guess so. I was taking such small baby steps because these things take so much time. And I guess like putting all this investment. So like, I hope you stay dedicated to it. But like, even because you've done this doesn't guarantee anything.
Absolutely.
It definitely helps. But like, the real engagement is going to be as you hone your craft, and every little component works. So my philosophy was a little different. It's like I wanted to get better at speaking and like get my licks in, get my repetitions in. And then I was like, eventually, if I start to feel it, then I'll start to like do the other stuff. I'll start to invest in like a better camera or a better backdrop and all that other stuff. But unfortunately, in true fashion, I just like did 4 videos, and I think I lost interest. I stopped doing it. I lost the discipline.
Yeah.
As we do.
Well, I mean, we'll roll back to that, but I think one thing that you actually did that was important was you didn't let the setup or like you didn't wait for it to be perfect. You started. You went ahead and went it. Like I know that's cliche, like record a video with your phone or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think that is important because like even when in terms of like the gym, like you just got to start, man. Like I don't care if you have like all the perfect gym outfit or any of those like you know what I'm getting at. Like you don't need anything to start if you already had the setup. You know, like you already had a camera that you knew you could record. You had a microphone. That's all you need to literally make the content that you wanted to make.
Yep.
And you didn't let it become an excuse. Oh, I don't have the backdrop. I don't have all these things. And that is a good quality to like take forward is like starting and being consistent, right? And that's where maybe it fell off. Was the consistency of it.
Yeah, I think that was the more
motivation.
Part is the consistency. I think is more important than almost anything.
Yeah. For me, I was inspired by Matt's. I thought his production value was that of a high-level podcast, high-level YouTube. I really enjoyed his stuff, and obviously he paid for an editor and for the like the music and stuff like that. So cool. So cool. I love the content. I feel bad because me and Matt had talked about bringing you on the podcast. I'd cut it because I don't know, it was just like a tangent, right? And I don't think it was productive to the episode, but he literally brought that up. I was, he's like, having Brandon on was a good time. And I was like, I think you would be good as like, your other half. He's like, yeah, and we talked about it and shit. But kind of what you said, like you stopped, streaming, you've been very consistent at. I think we talked about it today about another project, but you go all or nothing on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like you really, and I think that's cool, but it's also one thing I've realized is like it's small things incrementally, and it's really important not to overdo it, because if you overdo it, you don't have it as like a real scheduled routine, and like it's not a habit yet, and you add like 4 different things to change your life, or 4 new habits, and you want them all to stick, and it's like you haven't worked one in consistently yet. And I feel like that can be, and I'm sure you kind of like feel that and know that. I'm not like...
Yeah, no, it's a weird part of my personality. I don't know what it is, but, I can become hyper fixated. I'm a fast learner.
Yeah.
But the longevity, sometimes, like, I'll lose that learning. Like, I can pick up material really quickly. I can read stuff, and, like, my best way to learn is reading. It always has been. I have never really felt like I required a teacher. But I learn quickly, and then I think that stuff fades. But, like, I don't know. I can get very immersed in something. And when it takes over, it just... it's almost uncontrollable. I mean, I don't know how to express it. I don't know if it's just who I am, my spirit, my energy, my brain. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if it can be changed, but I do have a tendency to get hyper fixated on something, and it's all I think about. It's all consuming, and it's all I think about and do.
Yeah.
And then once it's done, like once I get to a certain point, it fades away, and then I'm just back in like limbo until the next thing just captures my attention again.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. It's just it's been a consistent thing throughout my life. Like I'll have these moments where like I just get hyper fixated on something and it's all consuming.
Yeah.
And then it'll just slowly drift over time.
Interesting.
I don't know why. I can't explain it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that happens to, quite honestly, a lot of people. I mean, up until like I started becoming more disciplined and stuff like that and tried to be more like conscious of those kind of things, like, oh, I'm slipping, like I need to focus, kind of ground myself. I mean, you know that, dude. I was horrible. I mean, I came to you with like $10,000 of credit card debt. Like, Brandon, please, daddy. Like, I can't ask my parents for $10K, but I can ask my second dad, Brandon, you know? Like, I was such a impressionable person, and relatively still am. I can always get in a mood of being impressionable.
Some of it's inexperience too. You know,
yeah.
and you're not the first person to get caught in that trap.
Right. I'm just saying in like general of like other things. Like I would never I would never be disciplined. I would maybe for like a week I could like do something consistently, but then I couldn't do it for a lifetime. I never had like the mindset to actually bring it into my life and look at it as like a life transition, not just like a fad or like the gym, right? Like I would maybe go for a day or two, but then it would completely drop off. Eating healthy, that kind of stuff. Oh yeah, I ordered groceries this week, but next week I'm gonna eat out and that kind of stuff. I don't know when it happened. I mean, I know relatively when it happened. It was like some kind of crisis in my mind that it was just like I was so upset with myself. And I think it all started with the credit card thing, because it kind of took a lot for me to even, I mean, I think I either cried or like wanted to cry when we had that conversation.
Yeah, I understand, man.
Because it felt like a trap, and I think something clicked in me then that it's like, all right, dude, like you got to buckle the fuck down and like start taking care of some of your responsibilities. And after I kind of cleared that debt, it was like I felt that I needed to start taking control of other aspects of my life.
Yeah.
And be proud of the person I was going to become, because without any direction, without a focus, it can feel like lonely and like devastating.
Yeah.
I think without like a vision of who you want to be, you're kind of just in limbo and just like going through the motions. You know what I mean?
God, yeah. Well, I feel like I've been in a weird limbo for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've reached some weird stage in my life where I don't know who I want to be or what I want to do anymore.
Yeah.
I've gone through many transitions in my life of setting goals and I don't know. I've had a very chaotic, like haphazard path through life. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's my guiding principles and star. I know I got a few core principles, but I don't know what's really. I just kind of do things. I don't know. I feel like I've been very lucky. My trajectory's shown me a lot of different things in life. I've had a lot of different jobs. I know like almost every aspect of like how modern life works from like an economic, production, logistics standpoint. Like I've participated in almost every position of the supply chain throughout my life. And it's taught me a lot of things. Like I know how logistics works, warehousing. I've worked in those jobs. I've done manufacturing very briefly. One of the worst things I ever did. Done customer service. One of the worst things I've also ever done. I've seen a lot of different, and it's always like, I'll try it on, see if it fits. And even everything I've ever done was engaging except for manufacturing. God, I hated that shit. Yeah. But almost everything's been engaging. Like I enjoyed the process of learning how to be good at it, how to master it. Even being warehouse worker. Like I I have a skill in following and establishing processes and following them to do things very efficiently. Even at my job now, I think it gives me some leeway sometimes too, because I can be hyper productive in small pockets of time where the rest of the time is almost free. When I was an exterminator, these guys weren't doing this. So the way that it would work is they would give you a sheet of jobs that you had to do. You might have 10, 15 places to hit in a day, different addresses, different scheduled time.
Yeah.
But it'd always be a window of like an hour and a half. And one day I took that sheet and I plugged every address into, I found a website that could do this for me. I just knew that it existed.
Like a route?
Yeah, a route optimizer. I was like, I plugged all the addresses in and I was like, give me the best route for this. It's just geometry math. I knew they'd figured it out. Somebody had to have. So I found a site and it would reorganize everything. And I'd have to like kind of make some concessions here and there because like the windows just wouldn't line up.
Yeah.
And dude, by the end of the day, I would be for 2 hours behind like a Lowe's parking lot just reading a book. Just fucking reading it up.
Damn, you really optimized your day.
Because I just would slap those jobs. I get them all done. Because I would go like the route. It just optimized the route for me. And if it was in a certain window of time, then I'd just knock it out and I'd just be chilling.
Yeah.
And there was really no incentive for me to be like, ask for more work.
Right.
Like, I wasn't gonna do that. And plus, like, I don't know, that place was interesting. It was an interesting job. But
you took that trip to Vietnam and that was a long one. You were there for how many months?
2 months.
Fucking huge, man.
Yeah. It was a long time to be away from your people.
Yeah. Well, and in a way, that's a very humbling experience. And I'm sure, like, you missed being home at times. But also, like, some of the things that you talked to me about and, like, how third world... Are they third world?
Yeah. I don't know if that would be considered, like, derogatory or not. Like... we'll call it.
We don't mean it to be derogatory.
They're a developing nation.
Developing nation.
Still.
Look at you using terms that are good for the internet. My point is,
how my future Vietnamese wife will feel. No.
Yeah. All right. She'll Google Translate. Third world. What does that mean? No, you had some experiences over there, and you get to see like a whole different way of life. Not every person has a cell phone.
No, I think
stuck
everybody
in front
should
of
do
their
it.
face. And
especially white people in this country, self-loathing,
yeah,
blah blah blah, diversity or whatever. America's on some weird shit, but like I think that when you go see these other countries, you see one of the cool things is that you'll see a different social contract.
Yeah.
And so by being around that, you start to realize that like some of the rules and like norms are like very arbitrary and like based around where you are and who you're around. You know, there's no like right or wrong to anything. I mean, you could argue there is, but like a lot of things are cultured and socialized into you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like going over there, it's just interesting. And they're very social people. I feel like they're not like so consumed by like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the U.S. is like indoorsy now. We're like indoor animals. But like out there is like, I don't know. They're more communal. They're more social. I just feel like not as much, and maybe, you know, I have my small subjective experience. I don't know how it tracks in a broader sense, but
it's still fine to take that.
They're very outgoing people, very social. Like I felt like I've told you that I feel like social anxiety is not a thing there. Like they're just so communal. That's one of the things I love about them. Like, you know, that's why they live together in tight knit families. Kind of like some Latin communities do. You know, you have like 3 generations living together.
Yeah.
You know, you don't throw your grandparents in a nursing home, stuff like that. But yeah, it's a crazy place. They also like, I mean, it's all good, like noise pollution. Like, you could be next to like three different families all playing karaoke at the same time, right next to each other with sound waves just like vibrating off each other, making my head about to explode.
And words you don't understand.
God, that language is difficult.
Nah, man, you got it.
Yeah, I gotta start. I gotta get back into it and really dedicate to learning it. But yeah, the Asian languages, that dialect of like inflection, like tone, the tonal part of it, like to have a pitch change what a word means is crazy.
Well, we had that instance earlier where at PetSmart I tried to make that pun and I couldn't even make inflection in my own language. You know what I mean? Like, let alone have to learn it in another language. That seems so challenging.
Yeah, I need to learn more about it to understand some of the nuances. Because I've like, when I think about English, you can change the meaning of a lot of things we say by emphasizing the words differently. You can kind of change the whole meaning of a sentence.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like Alex Hormozy. Is that his name?
Yeah.
I know you've seen him. He's in.
He's a dog. I do
He's
really
one of the
enjoy
best
him.
examples. He's basically talking about sales. He's like talking about training as salespeople. And
Sure.
like, I don't know why he chose this sentence, but he's like, I didn't say he hit his wife, but like that word, he plays with it so much. He's like, I didn't say he hit his wife. So you're implying that it wasn't me. It could have been someone else.
Yeah.
I didn't say he hit his wife. I didn't actually verbalize it. I like, whatever.
Right.
Or I didn't say he hit his wife. So now it's like, it didn't hit his wife. Who'd he hit? Somebody else?
Yeah.
So like all those different inflections on the words change that entire sentence. And so like his whole point is like, so maybe your sales guys, blah, blah, when they're talking to people, maybe they're just not saying the words properly. Like they have the sales script, but that was the whole lesson he was trying to teach is like, they have the sales script, but they're like, it's falling flat because they're not like using their tone. They're not using their spirit or whatever, their energy. They're not inflecting the words. They're just like, well, maybe reading it like a robot.
Yeah. And the script might be a fine script.
So I don't know how that works in Vietnamese. So since you
Yeah.
have a language where like the pitch and elevation of the tone changes the words, like I don't know how you start to emphasize words. I mean, I'm sure it's possible. Like I said, I don't know the language well enough to understand those nuances, but.
Well, you were telling me that British guy was pretty decent, right? At speaking?
Oh, yeah. No, there was I don't know if it was a British guy. No, there was a British guy that I caught up with at the bar. He didn't speak the language. He was just there working. There was another guy. He was an American. He was from California. And he was actually there teaching English, but he'd also, he knew the language pretty well. Like they were touting him out, like, raving about him.
He's that boy.
Like he could talk.
Yeah.
He was a character too.
Yeah.
He was making me uncomfortable because he was talking about some things. And it was kind of rude to the Vietnamese folks, but it's weird because he knows the language, so I feel like he has some respect for the culture. But maybe it's just me being sensitive to the situation. He was just talking about some weird things, and I was like, man, it's like they can hear us,
Right? Yeah.
But he knew they couldn't understand, so we were having like a weird segue conversation. He was a refreshing moment in time because like hanging out with her, and she speaks English in a broken manner.
Yeah.
Love her. Whatever, we get through
Dear.
it. It's hard to explain, but like being around her and her friends, like I'm always like, I feel like on an island a lot of times, very isolated, very difficult to communicate. Right. Of course, like I'm good at, body language and expressing myself and just being happy to be around or whatever. But when he showed up, it's like, oh God, I can talk to somebody that speaks English like me. I can have more complicated conversations. Yeah. So it was cool to have someone to talk to, but the content was weird. But yeah, he spoke. They were talking about, he speaks really good Vietnamase. I'm like, right on.
Did you ask how he learned or anything like that?
I think he took it at school.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was not offered. I mean, maybe it's university education.
And I think he was kind of immersed. I think he dated like a lot of Vietnamese chicks where he was from. So I think he got kind of immersed in the language locally over there. Okay. And then he'd taken trips to Vietnam, and I think he studied it. Okay. So that's why it's weird. Like I said, like I felt like some things he was saying, but it's like if a guy's taking this much effort to learn about these people in this culture, is like
kind of wild. Yeah. Like contradictory.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like a contradiction.
Fair enough. Well, maybe he's. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he feels like elitist, like, oh, I'm kind of high and mighty.
He was on some weird red pill shit.
Okay, fair. Oh, I remember this conversation.
Yeah, he was talking about like
my bad.
Women aging out and stuff. And, like, motherhood.
Disgusting, dude.
It was just a little weird.
And of course, he's saying these things, and it's like,
the girl he was dating was there at the table. That's why I was like, oh, dude, come on, man. And then later I told Rose, I was like, telling her about, I was like, tell her to watch out for him because like I'm not sure about his intentions. The way he's talking, he doesn't sound very serious. So like I kind of gave him the scoop. Yeah. Ratted him out. I'm a dirty rat.
You should have. I mean,
I didn't know this dude.
Exactly, dude. Well, I mean, it's just, that's a little disrespectful, and it is what it is, but. No, man, that trip, I mean, obviously was a life-altering trip, obviously, for you, but...
no, it was great. It was difficult and very, it's very fascinating to explore a place that's not your own. Yeah. And that just operates totally differently. Yeah.
Well, the lack of uniform driving would just send me... But it seems like a lot of things are ununiform. In a communist, it is communist, correct?
It is communist.
So it being a communist country, it's so unique. And you had told me about another experience with the man in the green jacket, which could be a book. But like, it's just weird to me to think that like, you could start a business like you sell food on the street. It's not like if I were to do that here, if I were seriously to set up a stand on Vine Street or something like that.
Yeah.
Eventually
Yeah, you might get away with it for a night, like those pop-up shops on like
someone is going to eventually come and start asking questions. Do you have proper this? Do you have proper that?
Yeah, where's your health inspector permit?
And I live in a free country.
Mm-hmm. No, that's the irony.
But there, they could post up on a corner, sell food for probably decades if it's successful. You know what I mean?
No, there's like the rules are very loose there. Like, I mean, you could grab a blanket and a bunch of fruit, and you could flop the blanket out on the sidewalk, and then say, "We're open for business."
Right?
I don't have to ask for permission from anyone. It's just as a part of the society there. Another thing is like regulations for like building codes and stuff like that. Like, I mean, there'd be dudes just not wearing helmets. There's no like strap.
No OSHA.
Yeah, there's no OSHA. Just some dude in like a pair of jeans, his shirt off, just like hammering away. Like no safety equipment. It's like that there. They don't have those safety rails that are like government mandated. It's weird because I don't really understand. Like, I'd like to almost research more like how the communist government of like a country like that works. Like, I think the communist government of China is doing very well for itself.
Right.
I don't know how anyone feels about China. I kind of look at things kind of like really, really scoped out.
Yeah.
I don't really get too bogged down with the details. It's just like I see a society that's highly advanced, very homogenized, and they want to preserve their culture. And I think that's okay. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like Americans are very like high and mighty and like wiser than thou. And like we try to like put our worldviews on other countries and shame them for, I don't know. China's they've done some dirty shit like everyone else.
You're right.
But I just see a very like organized society that's focused on community.
Yeah.
They've done some bad things. People would bring up like the Jaegers and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't live there. I don't understand the history. But communism in Vietnam, now Vietnam's a country that's not doing as great. Right. They're a developing country. It's even hard for them to visit our country. Right. So I don't know how well communism's doing for them. And I don't understand like how the government works. I know that you're not supposed to talk shit about it. Like that's one of the things, like you can't shit on that government.
Right.
That's how you get locked up and whatever, disappear.
Yeah. Goody.
And people there are they don't care about that shit.
Yeah.
They're just not worried about it because they're not supposed to talk about it. So honestly, it probably makes life a lot more breezy. It's like, whatever. You shit talk the government like when you're out having a beer every now and then, like, oh, these guys are doing this dumb shit. But then it's like, I don't think it doesn't take up a lot of like headspace like here. Where it's like, you can't like throw a stone without seeing an article about something to do with Biden or Trump or whatever.
Divisive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I wouldn't say it's, obviously I'm blessed that we are in the United States. I'm happy to be American, but I feel like you're right.
USA.
Yeah, I know, right?
Dude, I love this country, man.
No, one of the podcasts that I listened to recently, and someone who I would have never even listened to before because I thought he was so, like, my views were very left for a long time. And that's just because, like, I grew up on we both grew up on social services and, like, housing and things like that. But Tucker Carlson interviewed Vladimir Putin. And I don't trust everything that he says. I don't, like him as a, like, person. He makes even with that new guy who just passed away. Not new guy who passed away, but the people who criticize him disappear and end up dead. It's known, and he has a big pull when it comes to things like that. And there's open elections.
Yeah.
But the people of Russia don't even know the other, like, runner, right? Like, no one knows who the other guy, the other candidate. You just vote Vladimir Putin. My point is he talks about how he tried to join NATO, which is literally created to prevent Russia from expanding, right? NATO was literally created to prevent Russia.
It's like North American Trade Organization. Wait, no. Is that what it is? I can't remember what NATO means.
I don't think it's North American, but the point is that he literally, Google that shit.
No, I'm listening.
Yeah, I hear you. But he tried to join NATO, and he was having a conversation with Bill Clinton. And he had a decent relationship with him, and it was like, hey, Bill, like, what would it take for me to come to the table and join NATO? Do you think I could do that? And Bill Clinton, I guess. And this is all from Vladimir Putin, so take it with a grain of salt. But he literally was explaining these stories to Tucker, and he's like, I tried to come to the table with NATO and, wanted to kind of like de-escalate things. And so he asked, could I join NATO? Bill's like, maybe. Like, let me check with my guys. Like, let me talk to other countries, whatever. Comes back next day. He's like, no, you can't join. So we're trying to like keep him out of things. And then Tucker's like, well, what did he really, like what were the full conversations? And he's like, you ask him, I don't want to speak about private conversations. Another situation was George Bush. There was like a program where, obviously missiles were getting developed, and he, more technologically advanced missiles were getting developed, and they wanted to create a system to prevent worldwide missiles. I don't remember what it's called, but it's like...
Was this missile defense system
yes,
put in the eastern side of Europe, right?
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to help. He went to George Bush and was like, hey, if you guys are creating the system, we would love to participate and help and develop technology to prevent missiles from being as efficient, right? And George Bush was like, cool, that sounds good. And then the next day, I guess, the middlemen were like, no, we're not doing that. We're not associating with Russia. And the only reason I bring these examples up is because we, for some reason, always have an issue with everyone else. We stand on this high ground and judge other countries for their issues without realizing our own issues in our country. And I think it's about time that we stop being the war machine and we stop being the world government and start caring about what's happening here, because we're caring so much about what's going on in every single country, and literally we are losing our unity here. If you go out in public with American flags, or even if you wear an American flag shirt, that says something about you.
Yeah,
you know what I
think
mean?
You're some right leaning.
Is that not crazy? When we can't just be proud to be American, that is such a triggering idea to think that we can't be patriots and be proud to be American, because that presents an agenda. You know what I mean? That's mind-boggling.
Everything's been highly politicized, and one of the things I deal with in downtown downtown social meccas of industry or whatever, corporate environments, this is in my own office, there's people basically having this self-loathing view about being American, we're so talking shit about ourselves, and in context of going to Europe, don't tell them you're American, and all this self-loathing. I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up. I'm like, this country's pretty fucking cool.
It is.
It's got its problems, and we're gonna work them out, but there's no more. We have the most diversity of any country on this planet. Yeah. We have the most different people of different walks of life. Go to New York City.
Go to Chicago.
There's nothing like it. Yeah. If you hear anybody talk about it, go to Vietnam. You don't see anybody but Vietnamese. There's some of us, you see foreigners with small little pockets, but it's nothing like this country.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's corny. I think that America in the 70s, 80s, post World War II, we were the greatest country on earth. We were the strongest, at least. Yeah. Maybe not. I don't know what the greatest means, but we were the most powerful, and we leveraged that power in a geopolitical way. That's how we slowly became the world police. Yeah. It gave us a lot of prosperity. It gave our dollar a lot of value globally,
which gave us a lot of
economic power.
It gave us country pride.
It gave us country pride. I think that over time, that amount of comfort and prosperity slowly breeds a weaker generation that takes things like that for granted. And the sun's kind of setting on our empire. I don't know that we're definitely not. We're not the same country anymore.
Yeah.
And everybody gets to be number one for a bit, and I think we were for a while, but I don't think we are anymore.
Yeah.
Certainly, we don't have that type of power.
Yeah. We have influence. Absolutely.
We're still a very strong country,
and we will always have influence, in my opinion. I think. Even just based on our media, and we
have a lot of land and a lot of resources here.
Absolutely. And I think that's wonderfully said. That I think not that baby boomers are the issue or anything like that, you know, but I do think generational shifts have got us to where we are. And I'd like to think that we should really just start focusing on things here. Like, no more world police. Like, it's done over.
I think we're running out of money.
Yeah, well, why do we want to put missiles right at the border of Russia? And like,
well, that's a long history, you know.
I
mean,
know.
Look at the game we play, A&A, right?
Right, Axis and Allies, and it's so. But
Russia might have been against us in World War II if Hitler hadn't went
done what he
him.
did. My point is, man.
I mean, the Cold War was what, and right after that
60s?
we had the Cold War. I'm trying to remember some of the history. Some of this stuff, like the Soviet Union broke up when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like I remember,
in the
like
90s.
we had a war in Bosnia.
Yeah.
That Eastern Front in Europe's always been a little sketch for the last, like, I mean, it wasn't that long ago. So, you know, people have long memories, and I think it's just that old history between us, that there's this thing between us and Russia. I don't think it needs to be like that.
It does not need to be.
Honestly, as far as like, I think, like, practically speaking, our relationships with countries should be based on like trade, and like it shouldn't be any of our business how they're conducting affairs inside their nation. But now they've invaded Ukraine, and I don't know how I feel about that. I don't understand the complexities of the geopolitics there. I'll be honest. I haven't looked too deep. I don't think too much about it, because I'm not educated, and there's no reason for me to think about it.
Yeah.
Wars happen all over the place. There's minor border skirmishes, things that people never hear about probably. Just because it's in the news doesn't mean I need to care about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's a complicated issue. I don't think most people understand it. You know, you read a headline, you read a tagline. Nobody understands the complexities of geopolitics. Or maybe there's some people that have some understanding of it, but it's very difficult to wrap your mind around. And I mean, the world's a big place, and there's a lot of complexity in it.
It's difficult to not have a skewed view, too. Like, when you just have one form of media that you listen to that gives you all your information.
Yeah, I don't know what to believe anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And, well, that's what I think some of this is all for, is to just numb you, man. And, like, the war in Ukraine, it was interesting, again, listening to Putin's thing, because he was coming from his side. So here we are, nervous about nuclear warfare, right? Like, everyone, if you look in the media, I bet there's been thousands, if not tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of articles concerning about nuclear warfare stemming from Russia. In that interview, he specifically said, like, I understand what a nuclear bomb does to this world. He's like, it ends it. I'm not willing to end the world.
Yeah.
And in vague terms, right? That's like completely contradicts the media and everything that it feeds.
I can remember there was like a theory that he was like about to die, or he was like terminally ill, and they was like, you know where his mind state is. He might just like blow us all up. But
and
I don't know.
We've got to take control of the media. I mean, it's disappointing. I mean, honestly,
if Putin has kids, logic would dictate that he wouldn't want. I don't know if he does. I imagine he probably does at this point.
I don't think. I think he has tried to hide them. I think it's one of those
political rivals.
I think it's one of those things where he's like, people have suggested the children that he has. I think for sure he has a daughter, but he's never like actively claimed them, because he did have a family at some point.
So he's invested in their being in Earth.
Exactly. And I mean, he has a country. It's not like he hates everyone in his country. You know, I think in a way he's doing the things that he thinks will help his country. Maybe, you know, might not be the most politically free to speak about things. But I don't think that they live in a society of complete oppression. I think they probably have a decent, standard of living. Yeah. And I mean, hell, dude, they had just as much commercial brands before this war as the United States. You know, there is money flowing into Russia. I hate to get like so political on this war thing, but if you try to plant missiles on the border, what are we doing? Are we trying to instigate it? I mean, it literally seemed like a active instigation.
Yeah, it's like there's this big buddy club, and you're not in it, pal.
And that's what he talks about.
That does create strife. It creates friction.
He talked about that. He's like, literally, the West is not like the West, like Europe, Western Europe. You know, like Germany. UK, like, you know, like the world powers, France and the United States, do not want Russia to be, they're not invited to the cool kids table. you know, and same for China. And that's why they probably feel
that's
outed,
why
you
they're
know?
buddies too, you know. Well, and like I know we're adverse to authoritarian regimes.
Yeah.
Like, we like democracy, even though it's almost an illusion.
Yeah.
I don't know the power that we have to actually affect leadership here. I don't know. Sometimes it feels fake. I don't want. It's crazy to say. Like, I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in the system, but I don't know. I guess the average of everybody's, you know, feelings and thoughts maybe kind of dictate how our government works. I don't know how it works. But I don't really want to shame China and Russia, because sometimes, I don't know, sometimes I theory craft and I wonder about like the authoritarian regime, and does it have a place in the world? I don't know. I don't know what the best branch of government is. It seems like freedom's pretty cool to have. We want it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's always healthy for us. I don't know if freedom scales.
Is there too much freedom?
Well, like, I think about a country like China that constitutes 20% of the global population. So you got like billions of people.
Yeah.
Does freedom scale to that level? Can you have 2 billion people not on the same page? Or does that cause a lot of social discourse or like...
Does it need structure?
Yeah.
And
so I wonder if these systems arise just naturally.
Interesting.
I don't know if it's just a product of that amount of people and trying to have them all, you know, at least believe somewhat the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, we used to have the same media and everybody kind of believed mostly the same things and dressed the same thing. And diversity is great. It's cool to see people have different viewpoints and be different, but it certainly caused a lot of friction here.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's what China's trying to avoid.
Sure.
And sometimes I wonder if they're weaponizing things. Like, I don't know, there's weird things I'm seeing in our country that I sometimes I wonder if it is like a different type of warfare to weaken us. I don't know. That's like conspiracy tinfoil hat shit.
I hear you. Like, no, that I'll never forget. Like an interview with like a Russian. I think it was maybe a Russian spy or something like that. But he was having a conversation talking about how a country could rip apart another country just by media.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah, it was impressive, but it was almost eerie because like some of it, you know, falls in line with what happens in America today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like when you get people to not be able to trust the news, that's a scary idea, man.
Yeah.
Like the source of information for an entire country is something that you can't trust. Fucking excuse me. Like, what makes this any better than just a propaganda machine? Like, you really don't know what is true and what's wrong.
Yeah.
And what kind of world is that? Like, honestly.
Well, also, like, so another thing why I think of travel and being places is important, because, like, if your whole worldview around a country and its people is based around an oscillating rectangle of pixels, and a steady stream drip of internet data, but you've never been there, you've never had their food, you've never been around these people, you don't know what their life's like.
Yeah.
Everything is like third-party information to some degree. So it's like you're trying to create your worldview, or like your
based
view
off
of these people,
information that you've only heard.
And I'm not saying not to trust all information sources. I'm just saying it's hard to derive a completely accurate picture of anything based off of like a place you've never been.
That's well said.
You only have like a little bit of a window into it.
That's so well said, man. No, you are so right. Like, I bet you have a better idea of, you had a preconception of what maybe Vietnam and Vietnamese people would be like, and then when you go there, you get a different taste. You see a different humanity from them, and you get a better understanding.
It's like, not to be like woo-foo with it, but it's a feeling. Like, it's an energy. Like, you get there and there's just an energy to it. Like the way that things are done here, and the way that life is structured, and the way things flow is just different.
Yeah.
And it's hard to convey that through, you know, a third-party means.
Yeah. No matter how many YouTube videos you watch.
You could see plenty of pictures, you know, of like LA and the skyline and the beach, but you don't really... I didn't have a clue until I went there.
Yeah.
I actually went surfing there. That was different. It was like, I went there on a trip a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just going someplace gives you a different viewpoint. Yeah. I'm not saying you can't come up with a somewhat objectively true opinion of a place or that reality, but it's going to be a limited.
I hear you.
I don't know. That's why I always I'm careful about believing anything too fully. Sometimes I feel like it makes me a little too loosey-goosey. Like, I don't know what I stand for, what I believe in. I just feel like reality is very flimsy sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm very careful of like letting, I guess other people or other let media
Influences.
curate my reality and what I
Yeah.
think and believe. That's why I always take everything with a grain of salt.
That's important, man. I think that's a good mindset to have. I think, honestly, staying away from media can be, I bet it extends your life.
Probably.
Like, especially nowadays, because a lot of it is, what's that, like, I don't know if it's a phrase, but it's a, like, fundamental understanding that if you see something good, say, like, two kids, like, won the spelling bee or some shit like that in the news, cool, that's great.
Right.
But if you see two people murdered in downtown Cincinnati, that immediately raises that, like, oh, awareness, danger. Danger is what grabs your attention, not necessarily happy things, right?
Yeah.
Or like how successful the country is not going to be as cool as saying how destructive the country is, right? Or like any of our good social interactions is not as present as our bad interactions.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, even like, I'm not saying police are great or perfect. There's definitely bad interactions with police, but like for every George Floyd RIP, how many good things have happened from police? And that every day, right? It's not like every day we get one body cam footage or something like that, but it paints a picture that it's so destructive. And
no, it's tough. Yeah, they fixate on those, and like, God, that's such a complicated issue. It delves into so many intersecting,
right.
like,
And I don't want to
communities and problems.
Right.
I think some of it is over hyperinflated by media, and it sucks because like once that media takes hold of like the social consciousness, now it's like perpetuating these problems that, God, I was telling somebody this recently. So I did grow up in the 90s, and I remember like race problems between black and white folks. That's the most prominent one I can think of.
You felt that in the 90s?
No.
Oh,
actually,
okay.
well, I remember, it's like one of those things you learn about is like our history.
Yeah.
Right. And it sucks because we're all, you get plopped here. You come out into this world. You have no choice where you came from. Yeah. You have no choice who your parents were or what your ancestors did or any of that shit.
Yeah.
Like the whole medley of social conditions just get dropped on you. This is your burden to bear. Whatever your ethnicity is, whatever it is, you're just stuck with it. Male, female, whatever it is, you're just stuck with it. But like, so in the 90s, I just remember that our complicated past, we'd already come so far. We had the civil rights movements.
Yeah.
20, 30 years ago, however long. I'm not good with dates.
Yeah. 60s.
So it's not that far long ago, but like we've come a long way. And I remember thinking as a kid that like slowly this is going to erode and fade away as we continue to get generations beyond it. And then there's like almost this like renaissance.
Yeah.
Okay. A resurgence of that energy as social media starts to propagate these stories and a fixation on the negative and like all the bad things that happen in these communities and us is like, it gets brought, it's almost like it brought it back to life in a really weird way. Or one could argue that maybe I was just blind to it before social media illuminated it, and then I got to see it for all it is. I don't know which it is, or if it's just being shoved in our face. So now I got like Zoomer kids that have, or the furthest, or not to be derogatory to Zoomers, but
you
like
watch your mouth.
The youngest generation. So like I see these kids talk about some of these issues, and I'm like, God damn, like I was in the 90s, like I've been in the wrong neighborhood and got my ass kicked before over dumb shit, over the stupid tribal strife between our peoples.
Yeah.
Right? But to imagine like the Zoomers talking about this issue, I just never thought that we'd be here. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, I would like to think, I know racism exists. It's always going
absolutely.
to exist.
It's always,
it's forever. And it
We
sucks.
tend to segregate ourselves.
We do. And it's based on, your interactions. It's based on your experience in life, right? Like, thankfully, I felt like, I've been exposed to like relatively a lot of cultures. Like when we grew up, I mean, Bob, Mom, we had mixed people. Like, and even in my family, like, I had like black people in my family.
Well, in our town,
like,
I feel like it's mostly like black and white folks.
Yeah,
I didn't see many other
Mexicans,
representations.
or
yeah.
Latin,
Actually, there was
Latins.
There's some Latin folk.
And I remember my dad literally taking me when I was such a wee lad, like over to one of his coworker's house who was Mexican, and his kids spoke Spanish, and like I actually traded American like English Yu-Gi-Oh cards for Spanish Yu-Gi-Oh cards at the time because I thought it was cool.
Nice.
And like we couldn't really speak or anything like that to each other, but we were kids. My point is like I think a lot of people, I think for the most part, a lot of people are like that. I think a lot of people are like us and exposed to other cultures. I think it's the people who aren't exposed to other cultures who are more like hesitant.
Yeah, I think if you live, I mean, it doesn't matter what ethnicity you are really, but I think if you live in a homogenized remote area and you're around only the same people, you're going to tend to be more racist.
Yeah.
And like,
but that's segregating yourself in a way too, right?
Yeah, and naturally this happens to people. I've seen it. I don't know. This reminds me of a story. I remember this crazy ass sergeant when I was in the National Guard.
Yeah.
We were at Chow, and like the black and white folks were kind of segregated at the table. This is some white dude, but he walks up and he was like, oh, you guys are too segregated. I need you. He's like, he points to a black dude, points to a white dude. I need you guys to switch. Yeah. And he made him interweave, and I loved his confidence to address that issue and like poke fun of it and like just like do that. I was like, that's hilarious. But naturally people do that. You know what's funny is like America's really not even that racist, I don't think. But it's those isolated communities, and every ethnic group is capable of it. I don't believe this left-leaning bullshit where it's like, oh, only the people in power can be racist. Fuck you. That's nonsense talk. But like in Vietnam, it was funny to see racism from another group of people because they
told me
they
about
have
that.
Racist tendencies there too.
Well, amongst Asian people are racist against other Asian people. I was
against different Asians and also against like they had this weird thing like they were kind of racist against Indians.
You told me. Yeah.
I mean, it's a thing that happens, and it's not only in America. And honestly, I mean, I feel like we're probably better off than a lot of places when it comes to that. Yeah. But it's extremely stigmatized, and I think like we've gone so far where it's like you can't even poke fun at it anymore. Like trying to shame the guy for wearing a sombrero.
Well, I've never corrected you on a word.
Yeah. God, I thought it was an umbrella.
Yeah, sombrella. No. Just like you could sell those.
And like it's funny because like that guy wears the hat. Is like the Mexican people think that's funny and charming and don't give a shit, but then they're gonna get shamed by some white person at a university or something. Like shit like that in this country is wild to me.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, I hate to I'm delving into this stuff. It's just funny. Dude, it's just a funny world we live in.
Well, this is like why I wanted to bring you on and have like conversations about stuff because I mean. Dude, you are very articulate. I mean, I love your words, very articulate. You have a bigger dictionary than I do, and I think it's
dictionary.
Hey, all right, I see you. Oh man, but you're so articulate, and I think you do have a very thought of and like intelligent view on some things, and like I do really look up to you and like how you think, and I think you are right. I think if a lot of people just had the mindset that maybe what you see isn't actually what's the reality is, and like when it comes to like racism and things, it's if you actually have conversations, if you actually get yourself out there and interact with other races, you're going to quickly realize like there isn't the animosity, there isn't the toxicity that the media is really projecting, and that as long as you're a decent human, you're a decent human. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of decent humans out there, and there are some shitty humans out there.
Yeah. But decent and shitty ones come in every shade.
Right. But for the most part, man, I think people want peace. I think 90% of the world is positive, or like at least the States, 90% has got to be at least positive and a decent human being. But the 10% in a country as big as ours can fucking stand out heavily and like really create some grief.
You're going to find it if you go looking for it.
Yeah, that's true too.
You can find whatever you want to find.
Yeah. Shit, man. Well, dude, thank you for coming on the podcast. I'm getting tired now.
We've been going up blah blah blah.
Yeah, dude.
For a while, man.
We've been ripping it for like 2 hours. So like, where can people find your stream, Brandon?
Oh man, I don't even know if I want to put that out there.
Not even the plug? Oh my goodness.
Currently Zavikazi.
Zavikazi.
Yeah, like Zavi, Xavi, and then Kazi, Kaze.
There it is. At Twitch.
Hybrid. Yeah.
At twitch.com.
Twitch.tv.
All right. And then you got a YouTube set up or anything?
Oh, yeah, I do, but there's only 4 videos on there. I just rewatched one of them recently. I was like, it actually wasn't bad.
Yeah.
I was just like blabbering about whatever, this type of stuff that we're talking about, but solo.
Fair enough. Well, I won't force you to plug it if you don't want to, but I really appreciate you coming on, man. And
great having me. I love your setup, dude. I love what you're doing. I hope you keep at it.
Dude, we're gonna run this back. This was a lot of fun. I love you, man. Thanks for coming on here.
Thanks for having me, dude. This has turned out easier than I thought. I was a little nervous today,
dude. I got the flow.
Once we got going, yeah, it was a nice combo.
Yeah. Well, that's it for this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll catch you in the next one. Like, comment, and subscribe.
Do it
now.